Welcome back to our Lester Woodcraft. Today we're going to make this great looking picture frame. It's easier than it looks. Let's see how we do it. First thing we're going to do is cut the inlays for the frame. I'm just putting a slot in this maple board on both sides, and then I'll put a relief cut in the edge to free the two inlay pieces from the board. Now the inlay pieces just snap free. While I'm at it, I'm going to cut the strip off the other edge to use for the corner splines. I ripped some 3/4 walnut to 1 1/4 inches to use for the frame. After setting the blade height, I make a first pass on each board, then I nudge the fence over for a little bit at a time, making passes on only one of the boards until my inlay fits. Then once it fits, I run the other boards through for a final pass. Next, we just put glue in the slot and press in the inlay and set it off to dry. One additional thing I did but neglected to film was running the dried pieces through the saw to flush the surface up. This was to have a smooth surface for when we cut the frame pieces. Two weeks later. Notice anything different? This project was interrupted by my new saw getting set up, but it was so worth it. The miter gauge made cutting these pieces really easy and smooth. I made the first cut face up, measured for my inner dimension of the frame, then I flipped the board and cut outside my line. Then wash, rinse, repeat. Now I'm going to cut the rabbet in the frame. I set my blade to the desired height and the fence so that the distance from the fence and the outside of my blade is the same as the height. some more glue. I laid out some wax paper to work on, and I lay out all my pieces in a row and join the corners with some masking tape. This will handle the clamping when we roll it up. Spread glue as evenly as possible in the joints, and basically fold it up to make the frame. Masking tape really makes this part go smoothly. While that sits off to dry, I take the strip of maple I cut earlier over to the bandsaw to cut some short pieces to use as splines for the frame's corners. Then we set up the spline jig on the table saw and cut the slots in the corners for the splines. Next, glue the splines in the slots, let them dry, and cut the excess off the corners. Alright, so let's go over the math. It's my way of doing it. I think a lot simpler, doesn't require any special jigs, but I'm going to show you both ways to calculate, based on the data, how to measure out your frame pieces. So the way you calculate how long your outer dimension is for your cuts on a long way is going to be to take the material width, multiply that by 2. So in this case, it's 2.5. Take your rabbet, 1/4, multiply that by 2. So you've got a 1/2 inch. And now your size is 8 by 10. So you take your width times 2, your material width times 2, 2.5, and subtract your rabbet times 2, the 1/2. So we're left with 2 inches. Now you take that number and you add it to each one of your frame sizes. So you're making an 8 by 10, so your outer dimension of the frame is going to be 10 by 12. And that's the outer dimension, so the long sides of your miter cut boards. I think the way that I did it is a little simpler. Instead of measuring for the outer dimension of the frame, I'm measuring for the inner dimension of the frame, taking into account the rabbet. So here's how we did it. Take the rabbet, 1/4 inch, multiply it by 2, and you're left with a 1/2 inch. Subtract that from your frame dimensions. It's that easy. So then your inner size of the frame is going to be 7.5. Your inner side on this side, it will be 9.5. So then you've got your board with your cuts. The first cut you make is just that initial 45. You flip the board over to make the opposing cut, but before you do, you measure from the inside to the outside, 7.5 inches. Let's move on to sanding and finishing the board. I'm not going to break this down Barney style, but basically I sanded the frame up to 320 grit, wiped it down with 2 coats of Danish oil, and the rest is just installing the flip tabs for the back. really like how this frame turned out. Let me know how I did in the comments. If you'd like to see more, click the subscribe button. Get notified when I put out new videos. Thanks for watching. See you next time.